Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name's Jade, and this is the interview, baby. And today on the show, I'm so hyped. Venus Theory is here. Yeah. And we're going to kick off with one of his tracks. This is Everything I Know of You Is Best Forgotten. Hello. Welcome to the show. My name is Jade. You know the deal. There's my name. It's a little tag. You can read it and do the stuff. And I hope you're doing okay. Yeah, I hope you're doing okay out there. Wow. I'm excited. Are you excited? I see you all in the chat. You're all so cool. I want to lick you all. You're wicked. Thanks for being here. You're the best crowd anyone could ever have. Now, before we get into this, of course, I've got to do the mentioning of the thing, you know, the stuff, the shilling and all that kind of thing. And thank, of course, DistroKid, man, because they help me release my best music. And yes, I release music. Is it the best? Not really. Who cares? Does anyone listen to it? I don't care. I love making it. And you too can release your music too with a minimal price of $24.99 if you use my thing up the top there and in the description of distrokid.com/VIP/Jade. Say you'll get 7% off your first year. And you get all these cool things. See all the things that are ticked here. Unlimited songs, uploads, all this stuff. Spotify check mark. Wow. Thank you, Spotify, for that. Create royalty splits, all this kind of stuff, and access all these tools. You've got 3 plans, musicians, plus we get 2 artists, or you can be like me and use the ultimate plan where I have too many artists to deal with, yeah? But DistroKid have been sponsoring this show for a few years now, and, you know, I was using them way before we started this show, so it just makes sense, doesn't it? So, of course, thank you, DistroKid, and as always, I love you, DistroKid. Anyway, let's not do that too much. I keep getting messages from them saying stop with the weird tongue stuff, but it's all right. Okay, let me do a little bit of an introduction here. Yeah, it's do the like and all that stuff, all the fancy YouTube shit, folks. It really does help. So when I started this journey here on YouTube, I'd had a channel since like 2007, and all I'd been doing was uploading my music, and no one gave a flying fuck. For all these years, I had like 300 subs. No one cared because it's music. Who cares? You can just get it for $1. You know, you can just pay $9 a month and just stream it, right? And then in 2020, we know the inconvenience happened, and well, I started this thing where I wanted to teach you guys how to make music on iOS, and I love apps, and I borrowed a lot of them, so I started a little show called How to App on iOS. But over time, I wanted more, right? Because just showing apps is kind of, you know, they're just apps, man. They're not Pokemon. You don't need them all to make music. Every DAW has nearly everything you get in an app. How many reverbs can we have? And that led me to start doing things like the Wart series, where we talk about our emotions and you know, our feelings and anxiety and all this kind of stuff during the pandemic. And that also led to doing these interviews and doing so many different things on this channel. It's so much more than just buy an app, yeah? And that also led me to do a show called Walk With Me, where I bought cameras, and now I walk around Melbourne and film myself in Melbourne showing you guys around. Am I an expert at filming stuff? No, I'm getting better, but I'm an expert of where I live, and I love showing you guys. And the inspiration for all these things to branch out and be different and not just be an app person came from my guest today. Right? Because he started out doing this same kind of stuff, compression and all these things, but there's so much more to life than compression, right? There's beautiful cinematography, and there's the stuff that's inside us that makes us create the beautiful music that nobody listens to, right? So today I have the pleasure of this wonderful artist, musician, video game or composer, and YouTube extraordinaire, talented human being, Venus Theory. So let's bring him on, and I'll stop glazing like a donut that never ends. You know what I'm saying? Let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, Venus Theory. Cameron, welcome.
Welcome everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I appreciate the level of effort into the stream, just watching the intro there. Like, you got the zooms, you got the emojis and stuff. I literally just like turn it on and hit like Alt-3, and that's the stream. Like, I do not have time for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me today. You know, it's funny, you know, I reach out to a whole bunch of more popular people, because here in this community we have so many musicians, and I've interviewed virtually everyone in our community, and you throw the net out sometimes and go, I wonder if anybody will bite back. And when you did, I was like, holy shit, all right, is this real? So, but thank you so very much. I want to start with the most important question. Do we need every reverb that comes out, Cameron?
I think you need about 4 reverbs.
Right.
I think that's the natural limit I've approached, where it's like you need one utility reverb, you know, like a EMT, you know, digital reverb that just adds like good room to guitars and vocals and stuff. You need, I guess, supermassive, you know, something, one big ultra ambient thing. I think everybody needs black hole.
Yes!
Like, black hole's very, very good. And then I think you need one like very weird character reverb, like a spring reverb, or, you know, something like that just has like a vibe to it more than like, you know, epic reverb. Because I think with those 4, you kind of have all the bases covered.
It's a weird thing, because out of all the like effects and stuff, whenever one drops, I got to have it. I don't know. I got to have it. And then, you know, I think it just makes everything better. It just does. There's so many apps now that I see come out, and hey, they sound amazing, but you just can't beat a beautiful reverb. I love this one called Alteza, or Alteza by FAC. The shimmer on it is like nothing else I've ever heard. It just, I put it on everything. Anyway, enough reverb stuff. The real question that I normally open the show with, Cameron, what does music mean to you?
Simultaneously, like everything and nothing.
Wow.
I think it's like, it's such an incredibly deep personal act to like commit yourself to, you know, creating, and then I guess thereby commodifying like a idea or a moment and, you know, solidifying that into something you release. And, you know, generally art as a medium of communication, like it is kind of a product in the end. So that's kind of cool. And I think that's like the best feeling in the world to like put something out and people resonate with it. And at the same time, like the longer I've been doing it, because I mean, I've been in music like 20 years now, it, you just start to care a lot less and you're just more like, I'm just going to make the next thing. So it's a weird kind of paradoxical thing for me where it's like I love it and I will put everything I can into it, but at the same time I just like try to step back and just let it ride, you know?
It's a hard thing to do, isn't it? Like, I remember being young and having these ideas of, oh my God, I'm going to be a rock star. And
Mhm.
even now, I find it really hard to let go of music. When I'm producing it, I find it really hard to let go. And there's a lot of stuff I haven't, and I feel like I've missed the boat for it. Have you come across that kind of feeling with any projects or anything?
Yeah, I did one release called Aura's Spring on my Bandcamp, and I had this like kind of grand vision of like seasonal releases that just kind of, I don't know, act as like an audio diary of like that season for me. And then it just kind of, you know, got busy and projects and all this stuff came up. And I feel like I maybe missed something there, but at the same time, it's like if you obsess too much over something like that of like, I should be doing this, then I think you don't remain as open to like, you know, wherever things are leading you then. So that it happens, but I try not to place too much weight into it because otherwise, you know, you tend to just spiral over and over, and then nothing gets done.
Yeah, true. And you do a hell of a lot. Like it blows my mind how time management, like it's the hardest thing for so many people with work and the things you need to do to be able to make music. And then by
Yeah.
the time you get to do it, sometimes you start to do it and go, I'm not feeling it. What strategies do you put in place for time management to do all of the things that you do, which we're going to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's been kind of a trial and error thing, as most things are in creative work, where I maintain a pretty stable day job, and I always have. Like when I very first got started with everything, I was working doing front end web development and like tech support. So that was kind of like the day, and then I would make videos and like work on music and stuff. So with that, I had a pretty set schedule. Like, you know, I worked from 9 to 5 or whatever it was. And then I had, you know, 5 to 10 at night to do other things, right? And I've kind of learned that maintaining that is pretty healthy to where I schedule everything out in like quarters of the year. Like, you know, I know this quarter, these are like the things I'm doing and so on and so on. And then I'll break it down into more of a monthly view of like this month, these are the things that need to be done. These are the dates that are due. But every day, the rule I have for myself, because I'm sure just like you and, you know, probably everyone else watching this, I'm very much like an organization and system guy, so I have like no shortage of notebooks everywhere. So I have one that's kind of the master list
Oh
of
my
like
God.
shit that needs done, and then I have my like daily planner. But my rule for this is I call it the 5-in-1 rule, and I found this from someone somewhere, but every day I can only pick 5 things. That's all I can accomplish, and I found that that's really helpful and kind of a natural version of like the Eisenhower decision matrix of like what's important but doesn't like really matter, what's not important and doesn't really matter, and what's like sort of important but not like urgent. So that's been really helpful of like I pick 5 things a day and only one of them can be like the true focus of that day. And I know just through experience, like I've got about 4 or 5 hours of like creative juice in me on a given day, you know, and if I work on a song for like more than that, or you know whatever I'm doing creatively that day, I'll just start spinning my gears, you know, EQing the snare with 500 different bands, doing all this stuff where it's like it is productivity in a way, like I'm doing something, but I'm not really making like progress or momentum on a thing. So I found that that's pretty helpful. Is like I know my limits, and I know like I can only get so much done as a single person. So I think that that's helped to delineate like what is worth my time and what is just like zapping my battery, you know?
I love it. And I work on a very similar theory. The first one for every day is just get out of bed. That's the
Yeah.
priority because sometimes it's hard. You know? Let's go back in time. Go back in time to Little Venus Theory. In a house as a kid, what was some of the music that was played in your household by family members? And do you remember who they were and who are they? And have they influenced anything you do now?
Yeah, growing up, my parents both had very different tastes, which was kind of fun. So my mom was very like Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, the Police, things kind of in that era, and she also liked a lot of grunge and things like that. My mom claims to have invented grunge, which I think is funny. If you look at photos of her from like the early '80s, she has like the beat up jeans and like the flannel, and she has like kind of the ratty hair look, which I thought was so funny. Is like my mom was 10 years ahead of the curve for grunge. And then she also liked a lot of like old country and whatever. So my dad, on the other hand, was very Beatles. He was very into a genre called cowpunk, which is very fun. It's like country music, but sped up and turned into like punk rock, which was great. And then he was very into kind of some weirder bands. There's one group I remember a lot called the Samples. And it's, I don't know, not quite like jam band music, but kind of somewhere in that realm. And yeah, I mean, a lot of that just very diverse exposure to music growing up a lot of the time. And later on, as I got into music and showed an interest in music, there was family members that would send me CDs. I remember my aunt, she sent me I think it's the first or the second Godsmack record, the one with like the red sun and like the tattoo girl
Yeah.
on the cover.
That's a great album.
Yeah, it's like their first or second album, and I remember hearing that when it came in the mail and just like fucking, blew my mind as a 8-year-old or whatever. And that was super cool. And I think one of the most influential, which was really funny, was like, God, I was probably 5th or 6th grade maybe. My dad had a guy at work who knew that I was like into guitar and music and whatever, so he pirated Buckethead's album Colma, and he was babysitting my sister and I because my dad works a lot and whatever. So his friend from work came over and was like babysitting us, and he was like, "Hey, I made you something." So he gave me the CD, and I remember listening to that, and that was one of those really special musical moments for me where like it just clicked, because I think up to that point I hadn't really heard much purely instrumental music. Because like everything my parents listened to is very vocal driven, other than like the odd, instrumental country song, or kind of like the, like the talking country song where it's like a story over some chords. So I had never really heard like purely instrumental music, other than I guess some of the Beatles songs that are weirder. And I had never heard something like that where it was like, I can see something in my head as I listen to this, and there's no words. You know what I mean? And yeah, that was huge for me. And it was pretty much ever since that was like, that's what I want to do. That was like the most interesting thing I'd ever heard of. Music by itself can make me feel and experience something.
I love that. I love knowing that kind of question. I hate the boring questions of like, what are your influences? It's so wanky, because...
What's your favorite reverb?
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, thankfully that was sarcasm. Speaking of sarcasm, I want to talk. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and sarcasm didn't exist?
I'd be fucked. Oh man. Yeah, I don't even know. That'd be a hard day for me.
Especially in the world at the moment. You need as much as you can. All right, so
yeah.
Now the reason I asked this question is, so when I was younger, I got into metal. It was a music that I found that for the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. Right. And
Sure.
It's hard as a kid. It's hard to fit in. And I was, I was trans, and my dad had busted me heaps of times dressing up as a girl as a kid. Right. And he used to say, "I'm going to take you out the backyard and beat you up for doing it." And it's like, that's not going to work, dude. Whatever.
Right.
But when I found metal, he tried so hard to get on board. And he bought me my first album for Christmas. And after all this time of telling me, "You shouldn't dress up like a girl, rah, rah, rah," he bought me Poison's "Look What the Cat Dragged In." So this is why I asked this question. What was the first album that you purchased with your money and was given to you as a gift?
I think the first one, at least that I can remember, it was Korn, um, what was the album with the Twisted Transistor on it? Was that just called Twisted Transistor, or was that See You on the Other Side?
I'm not
I remember the art.
sure.
I remember the artwork. It had the rabbit and stuff on it. I'm gonna have to look that up.
Hang on, let's have a look. Corn.
That album was See You on the Other Side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, that one, that was the first one I bought that I
Wow.
can remember. And I got the like special edition. It had a poster that came with it too. That was super, super
Wow.
cool.
Hey, kids
And,
out there, did you hear that? The album came with a poster, kids.
Yeah. Yeah, because it was like I don't know, deluxe edition or something. So it had a poster and it had like all the liner notes. And it was something else it came with. I don't remember what it was, but I put it up on my wall too, and I remember that. And the first one is a gift. It might have been that Godsmack CD. I think that, at least that I can remember.
So new metal were you a metalhead?
Oh, absolutely. Still am like disgusting metalhead. Yeah. Yeah, which is funny because as you mentioned, with you being trans and then like myself, I mean, I'm not trans obviously, but I grew up in a very small like farm town, which is very like, Jesus and guns and trucks and whatever. So being kind of the artsy kid in that town was not a great experience growing up in school. And yeah, it's funny that metal was always like the most accepting community. I mean, there's certainly very like divisive parts of it, and very angry people within it and whatever. But I've always found that like, yeah, if you go to a metal show or something, like everyone's just cool and no one gives a shit about like you and your fucking baggage. Like we're all just there for things that go da 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 da.
Yeah, even the stupidest person who jumps off the stage, like in the worst position, still 20 hands would come down to pick them up, even though they just broke some girl's arm by landing on them. It's weird too, because during that time, I remember like there was a whole satanic panic during there, and I was just sitting there thinking, oh man, you really don't understand. Like without this, I feel like I don't fit anywhere. And you're trying to even take this from me? Come on, guys, really. I remember in Australia, they sent customs to all the very small independent metal stores. There weren't many around. And customs came and were literally taking Pungent Stench CDs off the shelves and putting them in a bag to leave. It's like, what?
To protect the kids, yeah.
It's strange. And we're almost back there again. I can't believe it. I guess 20-year cycles we run in on this world.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, because I see a lot of that here in the States of like violent video games are a problem again, and it's like, dude, we already did this, and it turned out it was stupid.
Yeah, it failed the first time. So let's where are we? We're at the 25-minute mark. I normally play another song by now, and then we come back and say hello to everybody who's here, do as many shout outs as we can. There's heaps of you here, so thanks for hanging out. We're gonna kick off this track. What have I got next? We're gonna play Pulling Serpents Through Smoke. Do you want to give us a brief synopsis?
Yeah, so this was part of a release I did when I was selected to write for a Warhammer 40K project, and I needed to write kind of some pitch demos, but I just got like super duper inspired and ended up writing, a little collection of tracks, and it was almost all of it exclusively made on the Polybrute 12, which I had just received at the time, and this track was like pure attitude. I don't really know how to describe it other than like I was working on the first couple parts of it, and that was like the image in my head was like these rolling visceral clouds, and I don't know. I guess that's about the best intro I can give. It's all very abstract.
Perfect. Let's do it, folks. Buckle up, grab your ankles, enjoy. This rocks. Let's do it right now. Boom. I'm a bit of a sucker for a bit of ambient noise. I do love it. Wow, 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 wow. So wonderful, your music, you know.
Thanks. It's mostly just noise.
That's it. Like you did a show on that recently about noise. It inspired me. There's been a bunch of rants I've done on this channel, which has been inspired by your videos, because noise is music.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's funny enough that like this is like where my metal influence shows, I think, where it's like it's less, electronic and more like riffs and cycling ideas and whatever. And this is kind of a very similar track where, there's kind of these bursts of kind of like, I don't know, a reverb just exploding that kind of folds back in on itself. And I'm very into things like that. I love the way sound can interact with itself.
Yeah, you made a great video about how, and it really got my brain thinking, talking about how, soundtracks for movies and stuff used to be these melodies and whimsicals and everything had melody. And now you don't see it happen in front of you because it happens over time. Much like police uniforms over the years used to be like all blue and non-threatening, and now they look like military soldiers. It just happened over a space of 40 years. And the same with music. Now you watch a movie and the soundtrack is thuds and textures and things scraping, and that's where we're at. But there's not a lot of discussion about it, really. I think, that's where soundtracks have gone.
Yeah, I think it's been just kind of a trend that, as we got access to more and more digital tools and ways to manipulate sound, it was just kind of a natural evolution of like, what can you do with sound? Like we used to have like, rendering real-time audio on a computer was like not a thing. And then within, 5 years, we have like samplers and romplers and things like this. And then, another 10 years on, we get all sorts of crazy technology that just pushes the barrier of like what sound can be and what you can do with it. Because, if you recorded a guitar and you wanted to slow it down 4 octaves or something, like you would have to slow a tape machine down. But now you can do that basically in real time without the stretching artifacts and stuff. And I think it just opens up a lot more exploration. And I think especially in the world of film and game soundtracks, you get a lot more freedom to do that. Whereas with like more traditional forms of music, there are expectations of like what types of sounds there are, how they work, what tempos are used, things like that. Whereas in a more collaborative medium or collaborative space like that, you get pretty much a carte blanche license to imagine like the sound of that world.
Let's say hello to some people here in the chat. Thank you first, Ed Zielinski, for the kind $5 super thing, whatever that little dancing thing is down there that YouTube says they are. Folks, can you make my life easy as always and just write something, anything? And I know I'm going to get a lot of somethings and anythings, but just so I can find your names and shout you out and do that, and just, you know the deal. Ali Gratilla is here. Leela is in the house. Gordon Lee Weaver. Audible Videos called in. We've got Thomas Christ, the best mod on the planet. Ed Zielinski, Rock in the house. E Urban's here saying bum bum bum. Awesome. We've got Digital Drew, Mateusz Prakowski, Electrona Sounds. What's going on? Good to see you. Chris Lane Senior, Hugh Caldwell, Doug Kidder. Hello to you. Jenny Jolivet is rocking as well too. I'm going to Creative Source. G'day to you as well, Mike. Chem OK, a great developer for iOS. Awesome stuff. I've reached the top, so I'm going to have to rely on anything that's down the bottom now, guys. James Meyer says something more than something. Awesome. And don't forget, folks, if you're a member, there's Venus Theory. Look at them all. The Venus Theory emojis floating around. Because, it feels like I put those in there, Cameron, because, when you go to an event and people throw the beach ball around when it's boring.
Oh, yeah.
So that's my concept of that anyway. It kind of works. If Dots is here, Sean Chandler's here. If I've missed you, Russ8889, g'day to you. Jamie Melander, dude. South Fresh, hello. I'm sure I'm going to miss you, but I'll try and do another shout out a little bit later, yeah? But thank you all. You guys rock so much. We got so much to get through. I want to know how you got into like playing music. Did you have lessons? What was your first instrument that you picked up, and how did you go with it?
I have very, very vague memories of like banging pots and pans in the kitchen as like, a toddler. And I know I got a harmonica somewhere
Ooh,
at some point. I don't know how or when, but I remember my parents getting really mad about it because we lived in an apartment at the time and I was just, like playing this harmonica nonstop. So it was always, I think, on some level, something I was just very interested in. And when I was, younger-ish, like 10 or something, I wanted a drum kit, or, I was 8 or whenever it was. And my parents naturally didn't want to buy a child a drum kit because
no.
that would be insane. And this is, well before the time of like affordable e-drum kits or whatever. So I ended up getting a guitar because my dad played guitar. So he bought me a guitar and taught me a couple of things. And I thought it was cool because my great grandpa was a guitar player and musician in 50s, 60s, 70s. Um, and he has records that him and his band made, which I have those downstairs. And I actually have my great grandpa's guitar as well. So I always thought
Wow.
that was pretty neat that like my great grandpa, made records and whatever. And I think there was some attachment there of like, I'm going to do that. And little did I know that like the music industry had already died. So joke was on me, but yeah, pretty much like a constant thing. I took guitar lessons for maybe a year. I don't know, it's kind of hard to remember because it
Sure.
was right before my parents got divorced. And then after that I was just self-taught. I did like a couple random lessons here and there over the years, but I just, I don't know, never really connected with that learning format. I guess like I took a couple lessons when I guess I hit sort of a wall of like I understand this, I just can't do it. And then the teacher would show me 2 3 times and then I would just be like, okay, thanks, bye, and then never show up again. But that's pretty much the educational approach of my life is like I'll get interested in a thing and I'll try and figure it out, and if I need more information I'll try and reach out to somebody about it. But I'm very much like a do it yourself person, just because I don't know, I tend to feel like other people slow me down or just annoy me.
It's fascinating about lessons because like I had singing lessons for a really long time and I had different teachers until I found one who the first lesson I had with her was with a group of other people at school, and somebody made a fart noise or something and she thought it was me and put a bin over my head. And I hated her. I hated her so much. But she ended up being the best singing teacher ever because she taught me stuff that singing teachers didn't teach. And that was about looking after myself and getting
Mm,
sleep and eating right because you're a tool instead of scales and all this. The emphasis was on health and all that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of teachers don't focus on that kind of stuff and about how you're feeling and getting the right hours sleep and all that. So you can create at your best. It's one thing
right.
knowing scales, but if you're feeling like dog shit, you're not even going to use those scales. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, did you learn the recorder by any chance?
I think so. I kind of remember something about recorders when I lived in Colorado.
Right.
I don't know. Man, I would might have been in like second grade, something like
Hey.
that. I very, very vaguely remember it. And I remember there was a day where they brought in other instruments and there was a cello and I was like, oh, that's the coolest sound ever. And I really, really wanted to like learn to play cello, but getting a cello is like thousands of dollars for like a, performance version one. So thank
And
God for like random off-brand stuff because I bought a cello like maybe 2 years ago now or so for like $200. So
wow. And they're fucking heavy to carry around.
yeah, yeah, I've never envied the people that play like the double bass, like contrabass, the giant like upright bass thing. Because I
Yeah.
remember when I went to music school for like a year, like university, but I dropped out because it was fucking stupid. But I remember there were a couple contrabass players there, and like watching them walk to class with this. I mean, it's the size of like a refrigerator, and they're just like hunched over walking to school. Like I always just thought that was really comical.
Yeah. I always wanted to play drums myself. And if it wasn't for E-Kits, I wouldn't be, because I was that
Mhm.
singer that at every rehearsal, when everyone would go out for a cigarette, I'd be on the drums and they'd go, get off my drums. So eventually I got an E-Kit and none of that pain anymore. The first band name, your first band name.
Man. I remember the kid, Stuart. He was my friend, and he played guitar too because we had the same guitar teacher right before my parents got divorced, and we had a band, where we played at like the school talent show. God, what was the name of it? It was like something really stupid. It had to be.
It always is first band name.
I don't remember. It was something like cubed, like the three symbol. I remember that it was like something cubed. I don't know why we thought that was really cool,
Right.
but we were like smart and awesome, I guess. I don't remember what it was. It was like some word and then cubed. I don't know.
Now, you obviously were playing in bands and playing gigs, and
Hmm.
all that world, because it's a tough world. Back then, well, I'm much older than you. I remember playing gigs and the owners not paying us and giving us acid
Hmm.
trips instead, and like
I remember those days fondly.
yeah, I mean, it's a crazy industry, and artists completely just get kicked in the balls at every step of the way. You get kicked in the balls. It's ouch my balls every single day. So,
Hmm.
how did you go doing that kind of stuff? Did it frustrate you, and why are you not doing it anymore?
I think it was really, really fun when you're young.
Right.
When I was 16, 17, like getting to go play a show and stuff was awesome. And like playing in my dad's band or playing with my stepbrother, we played a couple like little local festivals and stuff. And then, as I got a little older, had a car, I could play in other bands and like fill in on shows and go play at this and whatever. And that was pretty fun because that was pretty low risk. Like I didn't need to make money at it, So it was just like if we got paid, then cool. Um, and then by the time I was, 18, 19, 20, and like getting into touring and playing in bands and like that was how I paid rent. It was, playing 6 nights a week, sometimes multiple shows a night, and it was just super fun but super exhausting. And it's kind of for the reasons you state, where like as you get I don't know, more success with a band and stuff, you start working with promoters and then the promoters fuck you over and the venues, give you a guarantee, but then they're like, we didn't make the door sales. So then they're like, we could pay you in pizza and weed.
Yay.
And, when you're 20, you're just like, okay. But after a while, it's like that's just not sustainable. And by the time I guess I was like 22, 23, like getting into there, I was playing with bands and stuff, playing in a band with my wife as well, and just grinding, and it was just like I can't keep doing this. I think my best year ever doing music, I made about $40,000, which is pretty good on
Yeah.
the surface, right? Touring and just like that's what I did. I just played guitar and stuff. But when you talk about promotional costs and posters and merch and gas and food and whatever. It's like I was broke all the time, even though I was like doing more in music than anyone I knew at the time. So I don't know. That was kind of a pretty hard lesson in like trial by fire of like this is about as good as it gets,
Yeah.
unless you just get like super duper famous somehow. Because my next move was going to be moving to Nashville and trying to be like a session player or something, and I kind of looked into it, and it just became clear that especially in a city like that, everybody does that, so it just becomes infinitely more competitive for the same amount of money. And moving to a city where high cost of living and whatever, it was just like I can't do this. And also I just kind of fell out of love with playing live. I don't like the performative aspect of it, where it's just kind of like a sing monkey, dance monkey sort of thing. And like I was good at it. I think I was a pretty good showman and, like whatever, but it was just tiring, and it was just like I'm 24 and I'm like, I'm too old for this shit.
It really is a big ask, and
Yeah.
even now, probably harder. I don't know. I'm not doing it these days anymore. But as you say, stickering and flyering, all the hard shit that you
Hmm.
used to have to, the thankless stuff, kind of what you do on YouTube when you're off air. I think
Yeah.
people
Right.
forget that stuff too, where it's like, oh, why don't you do more of this? It's like, you want to do the shit I do off air? Like, you don't want to see that. It's a pain in the ass. But one of the other things, live performance, is engineers. I, s-
Yeah.
if you've got an engineer, you can afford a consistent engineer for your gigs. Wow, lucky you. But when you're a young band, you normally get lumped with the house engineer every time, and it's really hard because every gig sounds different.
Well, and then yeah, some bands I was in, some of them were running like Ableton scenes and whatever to like have backing tracks or intro tracks or whatever, and you show up to some gig in fucking the middle of nowhere in Iowa, and like the sound person has no idea how to like get a audio from a laptop into the thing and whatever. So yeah, I was pretty fortunate because like a couple bands I was in, we had like dedicated touring engineers, and one or two of them I had my own guitar tech and stuff like that, but. Not exactly a chapter of my life I look back on and go like, I would do that again. Like hindsight being very 2020, it's kind of like, well, there were probably better ways to spend my time given the era of the music industry we were in. Like if I was doing this in the 80s, probably would have been awesome. Doing this in like the late 2000s and like through to the mid 2010s or so, I guess it's like, there was no money in it, and it's funny. Yeah. Cause as you mentioned, like out of all the people I remember and like have stayed in touch with from that chapter of my life, I mean, very, very few of them still do it. And the people that do are still just as like completely dead broke at, 30 something as they were when they were 18. And it's like, I respect the hell out of them for staying with it, but I'm just like, I'm kind of glad I got out of that and could have like, food and shelter and water and stuff, and not worry about like, oh man, if I don't book another gig, I don't know that I can eat next week.
Yes, that food is good. I like food, sometimes way too much. So what leads you to YouTube? Is there a, because I guess you're watching it by this time. Most of us are. And what leads you to this? So it's 2017 you started your channel. And
yeah,
the
that sounds right.
Video was on compression, if I'm remembering
the
right?
Sine compression bases. Yeah. Yeah. At that time, there were a lot of YouTubers I was really inspired by and learning a ton from, Sadowik and Seamless and Virtual Riot and Jade Cicada had a great channel. Alchemy, who I still talk to, and like Virtual Riot, I talk to him every so often, which is kind of cool, like to have made those connections through that. But they were doing all these videos about like sound design tutorials and things. And I had just finished this EP, and I kind of had some like different approaches to doing things, especially because I was working in Cubase at the time, which was like not very common in this scene of music, I guess, which Virtual Riot was using it, I think. But yeah, I was like, I should do that. I have a webcam and I have some thoughts that I for some reason think people need to hear. So it was just kind of like a why not, because I wasn't really making music at the time. I had just finished making this little EP and was like, I just need a break, might as well try this. And then it just kind of very, very slowly picked up and got to a point where it was just like, okay, so there's something here, because I think by the time I got to about 10,000 subscribers or so, it's like, I don't think you get there without having something to it, Yeah. And then it was just a very long, slow, tedious grind ever since.
Yeah, it's interesting with YouTube because I watch a lot of tutorials. I watch a lot of stuff on snake breeding and spider breeding. I don't watch, my YouTube experience is not all music. In fact, it's this much music. You've got to have outside things that you watch. But if I watch a tutorial and in the first 10 minutes, I don't like the person, I'm out of there.
Yeah, I think that was my problem too. And I think that's why maybe my channel stalled pretty hard after a certain point, is like, I just have the personality of wet cardboard. So, hearing someone, especially sounding the way I do, where, if you're watching a 35-minute video of someone being like, all right, so here are some tricks with aux bus sends and and like it's very pedantic and annoying. So I think that's why that plateaued pretty hard for a while there.
It's interesting. I hear you say on, I get, everything's with a grain of salt and a bit of laughter and stuff like that, that people may find you a little bit abrasive or a downer, or I've never, I've never got that. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm similar or something. I don't know.
Maybe, I think it's one of those things if it's like it's like music, right? Like when you write your music and put it out, it's like you either get it or you don't. And I'm very comfortable with like my channel as a, 50-50 love it or hate it sort of thing. Like some people think I'm just whiny and pretentious and annoying. And, I could see my videos and go, yeah, I can see that. But to the same end, it's also like, then the people that do watch it and really enjoy it, like they're, pretty ride or die for like that thing where I think, especially by this point in time, if you see a Venus Theory video, like, what you're going to get. I think of it a lot like, creators I really like ContraPoints or something where it's like, you get it or you don't.
Yep.
And if you do like it, it's like, that's the only place to get it. And I think that's really, really cool. So that was kind of a note I took from a lot of channels I watch of, Better Ideas or Matt Diavella or ContraPoints or, channels like that, where it's like, I want to do that, but for my space over here,
See, I want you to do some voiceovers for books.
Yeah, my wife has mentioned now, because she's really into like all the book talk, smut and whatever, and she was like, you could probably make a sickening amount of money reading like sexy books.
Sexy books, I love it. And people agree in the chat. Look at this, definitely a voice for audiobooks or radio. Got an incredible voice for narration. So it's interesting. Well, I think what I find really enjoyable about your content is that it's honest.
Sure.
And it's saying things that we're all thinking. And there's not enough of that on YouTube. And I think, again, so personality, that it's got to be a thing. You've got to want to come back and listen to this person. And voice, obviously, it's got to be soothing. If somebody's going, you're not going to listen to that.
Yeah.
But I think people are craving honesty, and even more and more at the moment, where, like, I don't know, lies seem like the thing to do at the moment for certain powers that be in the world. But there isn't enough of authenticity, I think. And I think that's what you bring. So what are your thoughts on your authenticity?
I always kind of took a note from creators like Heinbach or Van Neistat, I think is another great one, where I like this sort of voyeuristic aspect to their channel, where it's like you're just kind of invited into their world for a little while, and it's not quite like fly on the wall sort of thing, but it is like a vibe piece. And that's kind of what I try and do is, I'm not talking at a camera. I'm talking to myself a week ago, a day ago, 5 years ago, or just like someone who I met, who I had a conversation with. And like, that's why this video exists. And that's the impetus for it, where I want it to feel very stream of consciousness and very conversational. And I think, the honesty aspect is very, very important, because if I, tried to Mr. Beast my channel and my videos and all that, it just wouldn't work at all. Where I think you're kind of almost watching like a weird video diary, sort of like thought dump. And I think that's just kind of what makes the format work, is it's like, no matter what it is I'm doing or talking about, it's all framed through my lens and my experience and my interpretation of something. And, being an artist, I think that's, as you said, maybe we're like the ability for people to identify with it, of like, these are all problems we face. We just face them at different scales, Yeah.
And being like this, and being a creative type, like, we're all we wound pretty easy. We wound ourselves pretty fucking easy as well, too.
Yeah.
How do you deal with criticism?
I talked about it in one of my videos. My rule for it is, unless the person criticizing what I'm doing has either accomplished something I respect or like done something I aspire to do, then I don't care what they think. Like if Jason Graves messages me and says like, hey, your mixes are bullshit, I would probably listen to that and ask, why. Not that Jason would ever be like, your mixes are shit. But like I was doing a project with him once and he was like, hey, you're putting a little too much top end on the drums. Like they're just too bright. And I was like, huh. And then, tried it and was like, oh yeah, you're totally right. And someone like that, who I admire a lot, respect a lot, who has accomplished a lot of things I hope to do myself. When someone like that, joins in with some criticism, I think they always frame it from a helpful place, whereas other people just kind of mean it to like piss you off or waste your time and get your attention in the YouTube comments and stuff. And I think it's David Goggins' quote where he says, you never meet a hater doing better than you are. And I think that's a pretty healthy way to look at it.
Yeah, you got to love Tim87963, who leaves a comment saying you're doing this wrong. You go look at their channel and there's no content, and you're like,
Or they posted one song like 6 years ago, and,
Yeah.
and it's like it's exactly what you expect it to be, and you're like, oh, okay. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of that too on my end. Of I use ad blocker in my browser, and if I go to the YouTube dashboard, it blocks out pretty much everything. Like I don't see comments, I don't see analytics, I don't see where the video is ranking. Even on like other channels, it blocks off the recommended feed, it blocks off the comments, just because I think there's an intentionality behind consumption that, especially in this day and age, we forget a lot, just because like stuff is everywhere, like your phone, your watch, your fucking tablet, your
Yeah.
computer, everything's competing for your attention in some capacity. And I think if you're going to give it to it, there has to be a reason for that. And I've found that like listening to the noise of the online world is just not helpful, really. Good or bad. Like, because I think it's easy to sit there and like circle jerk over yourself of like, oh, I'm a genius, this is great, people love it. And I don't think that that's helpful either, just to like sit there and rest on your laurels the whole time, because then you're more apt to kind of sit in your comfort zone. And I don't think that that's like artistically interesting either.
Let's play some more of your amazing music. Yeah. So
Let's do it.
Now, folks, here's the thing. When I used to do the show, and I hate interviews where there's no music played, right? Because you've got this person yammering on, and it's like, yeah, but we're talking about this thing that I'm not hearing that they do. So, and I like having video clips, but over time doing these interviews, I've really got used to putting up a Bandcamp image because the videos distract, I feel. Right. So I really love that all the clips today we've got are just Bandcamp pages. So folks, listen, right? Use your ears.
Right.
I say that time with mixing and all that stuff. Use your ears. If it sounds good, fucking go for it. That's what the most important thing. So this is called Dogs of Cairo. And we'll come back and talk about what it's about. Let's just mix it up a little bit. We're living dangerously.
And I'll give you a bonus of what word you pronounced wrong there. There's a fun story.
All right. Do you want to do it now?
No, we'll wait for the surprise.
Let's do it. Let's age. I love during that track, Many Vibes comes in and says, "What do you call this music?" I think you answered your own question.
Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite tracks on that little EP, because there's the cello, my like cheap little cello. I did a violin and viola with it, and then one of the other instruments is a banjo, but I'm bowing it
Beautiful.
with a cello bow, so it has this really interesting kind of like, I don't know, very like spiritual quality to it. I discovered that when I was working on the soundtrack for Avowed. Yeah, it's like one of my favorite sounds I've discovered recently. But that track, so it's actually Dogs of Cairo, and it's a town in Illinois called spelled like Cairo, but it's pronounced Cairo. It's basically abandoned. There's very, very few people left. It's a very dark story behind it. I'll let you do your own research there, but the town kind of tore itself apart. So when you drive through, I mean, it's like a Fallout map. I've never seen a place quite like it where, I mean, just houses collapsing in on themselves. There's one house in particular, because I'll drive through Cairo on the way to my dad's house in Missouri, and there's a just beautiful old ranch house kind of in the middle of a field, and there's a tree growing out like the big bay window of it, and just
Oh, wow.
I don't know, it's incredible looking, and I really want to go there and bring like my drone and my camera and film some stuff, but it's actually a pretty dangerous area to be in, so I don't really want to walk in with like a bunch of very expensive looking filming gear. But the Dogs of Cairo, it's kind of a local thing, where it's Cairo, Illinois, little tiny town down by the confluence of the rivers. And there's kind of this local thing about the Dogs of Cairo where there's so many stray dogs that are like feral, like mean dogs.
Right.
So it's kind of a known thing that like you don't mess with the Dogs of Cairo because like they'll fucking eat you. So when I drive through, like you'll see these roving packs of like 10 dogs that are just completely wild in like this abandoned like liminal hellscape. It's a very cool place. Very weird energy there. I don't really know how to describe it, but then so I put it in music form because music is what feelings sound like.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, but all your music, beautiful stuff. And I lived in America from 2016 to 2018.
So like the worst time to be here.
I landed right on the election.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. That was probably
wow.
not a good time.
Yeah. Can I go to the toilet, anyone? But what and I got to play some gigs, and we got to play in Chicago and a whole lot of places. And we got to drive through so many towns. And there was the one thing I really noticed about America, how many towns we drove through that were really, really run down and just empty and like ghost towns. And it's something you don't see here in Australia. We don't see that enough. Like all we get is Donald Trump these days. So you don't see that is what's going on, that so many towns are abandoned. And so it was quite jarring to see that in a country that you've grown up like the big lights of America, and to see that on a ground level was really shocking and stark.
Yeah, I used to be very, very into urban exploration when I lived in Minneapolis and St. Paul, because there were a lot of like abandoned factories and stuff there. So I'd always like go with my Urbex group and like go into these buildings and like take pictures and look around and stuff. One of my favorite channels on YouTube is The Proper People.
Yes.
If anyone's familiar. If you watch them,
channel.
you know what I'm talking. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And I would love to work with those guys someday, or just like score one of their videos or something. And yeah, I don't know what it is about that stuff. Like, it's maybe the apocalypse fetishist in me of like, I love these weird abandoned places where like people are gone and like what happens after. Which I remember that there was a show when I was younger called Life After People. I think it was like a History Channel or Discovery Channel special.
Yeah, that was great.
That was one of those like weird core memory moments of, I've always found that incredibly interesting. But yeah, Cairo is easily within my top 10 of like the weirdest abandoned places I've been, where like there's just such a heavy energy there, and I always think that's really, really interesting.
Well, I hit the wrong camera. Well, we're at our halfway point, folks, and I need to do my sponsor run. So let's do it. I'm going to hit the magic button and let past me speak now me about the things to release music that I do, and you can too, because today's sponsor is, of course, DistroKid. So past me, take it away. This presentation is proudly sponsored by DistroKid. Introducing DistroKid, your ultimate music distribution solution. For just $29.99 a year, DistroKid empowers you to release unlimited tracks on all major music platforms worldwide, including Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, and so many more. Plus, use my link distrokid.com/VIP/JadeStarr and get 7% off your first year. You'll also keep 100% of your royalties and gain access to valuable tools like instant verification on Spotify and detailed revenue analytics. Don't let your music go unheard. Join DistroKid today and take your music career to the next level. Thank you, DistroKid, for sponsoring today's presentation. Yes, yes, indeed. And you know what? We have to do the obligatory, you know what's coming, DistroKid. I love you, DistroKid. There we go. So that's... No, thank you, DistroKid, so much for sponsoring this. I wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So this segues perfectly into the YouTube grind for you. So you're showing plugins, hardware, sponsorship, all this kind of stuff. And how does that go for you? Dealing with all of that. And I think people don't understand what it's like to go and reach out to companies or have companies reach out with you. Because I was thinking about it the other day, nearly every piece of software that's out there or hardware has your hands have been on it somewhere, right? You've fondled it somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
How does it go, like reaching out and doing all that stuff and then becoming a little bit jaded with the whole thing?
Yeah, when I was first starting out with YouTube, as you mentioned, I was doing like tutorials and things like that. So I think I'm a little fuzzy on the details. I think the very first sponsor thing I ever did was maybe Kilohertz, because Cubase at the time had a very shitty sounding filter that just didn't work. And I remember reaching out to Kilohertz and being like, hey, I'm this really small creator. I mean, I maybe had 1,000 subscribers at the time or something. And I work in Cubase and the filter in Cubase sucks. And I see you have this filter, and it was $20, but like I just couldn't afford it. Like I was stretched so fucking thin, like trying to start this channel and working a day job. My wife was in university at the time, so she was like working part-time kind of with being a barista and stuff. So it was just like a $20 filter was like, I can't do this, but like I have a really good idea. So that was cool. They were very, very welcoming about it. I think they just gave me everything. Actually, they were just like, here's a full license for everything. And I was like, oh, holy fuck, which like that was, hundreds of dollars worth of stuff, which was awesome. And, that kind of kept happening where I would find a thing and reach out. And then eventually my channel got enough traction to where they started reaching out to me.
Yep.
Which, maybe that's how DistroKid approached you or something, where like eventually you kind of develop enough momentum to where like you get on the radar of like companies and whatever. And, yeah, so I kept doing that, eventually got into hardware and stuff, and then I started doing a lot more sound design work where I would get, a plugin or a hardware thing sent to me to do presets for, or, other things like that, and then I would also do a video about it, and that was really, really neat. And, I remain incredibly fortunate to work with a lot of really cool companies, but these days I don't do, any sponsorships, I don't do gear videos, I don't do plugin videos, I don't do anything like that, because there was I don't know when in particular, but there was just kind of a weird shift in the vibe of like music YouTube, where it was, like going back to what we talked about earlier, it was like reminiscent of the metal scene where everyone was like really tight and cool. And, it was just like a bunch of really nerdy people talking about like filters and reverbs and stuff. And it was like, that was super neat to like have this community. And then I don't know what changed, but I think it was just more and more people started doing it, and people kind of started to see people doing it just for the sake of money rather than like really trying to contribute something to like the scene of like production YouTube, I guess. And, then I started doing some consulting with companies and like helping them run marketing campaigns and things like that. And seeing the other side of the curtain kind of, I don't know, that definitely made me a bit jaded for sure, just because like there are some YouTubers I knew of, and then I was like running brand campaigns and like getting them deals and stuff, and just kind of being like, this sucks. And then the comments and the community shifted a lot of like, everyone's like, you shill, you piece of shit, fuck you, that kind of stuff. And it got to a point where like I'm getting like death threats and shit over like giving something a bad review or something, and I was just like, fuck this. So kind of stepped away from that. And that was kind of like when I quiet quit YouTube basically, and that was also the impetus for the change of the style of content I make on my channel, to where it was very clear that like I'm not going to do this anymore. It was kind of like when I was in bands and just got to the point of like I can't do this, like I'm losing my mind, I can't do it. And yeah, YouTube just got to that same point, and I was like, all right, so assuming that's dead, what's next? And I had absolutely no evidence for it, but being someone with like a background in videography and, someone who's very into like philosophy and psychology and stuff like that, and watching a lot of the other creators I was getting really into, it was just like, what does that of music stuff look like? And I think my channel especially more recently, has kind of grown beyond the scope of just music, but it's all kind of presented through the lens of like a musician artist archetype. So I don't know. It just became clear that like after a certain point, all they're trying to do is price out your integrity with something.
Yeah.
And I do realize the irony of this with like DistroKid sponsoring this stream, so I'm like fully cognizant of that. But like, it's not an attack or anything. But you know, it's just like there are companies that do it in such a predatory way that it was just like I'm out. You know, I'm not doing this anymore. And you know, through that, I started doing my own instruments and sample packs and things like that. And it was like, if I'm going to run this channel and this whole thing, I should own everything all the way down. You know, like if I'm going to promote anything, why am I not promoting what I'm doing? Like now, especially now that I built like a bigger audience and stuff, like it would be stupid of me, I think, to sit there and like, I don't know, talk about VPNs and take 5% or something. You know what I mean?
No Raid Shadow Legends? Come on.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
It's interesting because, you know, I was thinking about this last night. You're showing brands, you're you know, giving insights to brands, and then eventually you become a brand yourself.
Right.
And then you've got to advertise you. And
right.
And that's what you've done, clearly. So currently over 400,000 subs, right? Tens of millions of views. Do numbers matter to you like that? Are they just vanity metrics to you?
I think anymore, yeah. Because like I do get frustrated when videos perform poorly just because of the amount of effort that goes into them, but I can't let that like stop me from making the next thing. But I try not to pay too much attention to it just because like when you get to a certain scale, the numbers just stop making like logical sense. You know, like when you start your channel and like a video gets 5 views, you're like, okay, cool, like 5 people watched it. And then, you know, the first video you get that gets 100 views, you're like, holy shit, you know, like that's like 100 people.
Yeah.
And when you get to a certain scale, you know, like my channel gets millions of impressions a month and then like a million some views a month or something like that. And like imagine a million people. Like I can't picture that logically. Like what's a I don't know, a football stadium that's like maybe 100,000 people.
Yeah, 100,000.
And it's like, okay, so on a day like that where I put out a video and YouTube just, you know, for whatever reason just shits all over it and it's like it gets 60,000 views and I get sort of frustrated with that because it's like, you know, my videos now take a lot of time. I mean, they're basically like short films at this point, and I don't have an editor. I don't have a research team. I don't have, you know, cinematography assistants or whatever. Like I do everything myself. So if I'm putting, you know, 100+ hours into a video or so on average and YouTube shits on it, I feel bad and get annoyed. But then it's also like on some level, you zoom out into that kind of third person perspective and go, oh, boo hoo, poor fucking you. You only got 60,000 people watching your video. What a fucking terrible day that must be. So, you know, with that perspective, you know, it makes no sense to complain about it. But on some level, it is also something I have to like pay attention to because it is a part of like my business overall, you know, because like I think my YouTube channel mostly exists as like a portfolio for Venus Incorporated, whether that's, you know, getting work as a composer, getting work as a sound designer, you know, bringing attention to platforms like Decent Sampler, which I do a lot of work for and stuff like that. And with that, you know, then there's like other people in the process that depend on me making money and stuff, right? You know, so it's hard, but it is one of those things. If I think it is worth it, and then in becoming a brand myself, there is a weird irony to it where, you know, now I am still promoting products and things and whatever, but I'm also thinking about it more like ultimately when you do a sponsorship or an affiliate link or a merch drop or whatever, the innate action there is that people want to support you as the creator, right? Like if people use your link for DistroKid, they are supporting you, Jade.
Yep.
And not, you know, like they're not just buying DistroKid, they're buying DistroKid to support you.
Sure.
So I think it's just one step removed from that process of like, if you want the best way to support me, buy an instrument pack, buy an album on Bandcamp, or, you know, whatever, share my video, things like that. So it's weird, but again, yeah, like when the numbers get so big and there's so many zeros trailing them, it's like again, if you zoom out one level, you're just like, shut up, like stop fucking crying, like you're fine.
It is like I this channel really runs off my community. You know, without my
Yeah.
community and Patreon and all this kind of stuff, I wouldn't be here. It's the people. And
I mean, same. And it's like,
yeah,
we have very different subscriber counts and view counts and whatever, but it's like, same thing. Like and I think that's something I've learned over time, especially is like in music or in composing or whatever, like the difference between $100 gig and like a $10,000 gig is a couple of zeros. Like the bullshit, the day to day, the way things happen, it's the same. It's just, different scale, different numbers attached. And I think it's cool. Like, I think it's cool that people are willing to support independent creators like that. And I think it's going to be very sad if that starts to go away.
I hope not. Now, I've got up here your Decent Sampler stuff. I've done shows on Decent Sampler. I think I've done quite a few shows on Decent Sampler, but I haven't.
What do you make of it?
I love it. Well, I use it. I use everything on iPad. It's iPad's probably got a little bit of glitchiness. It's definitely got a lot better than when it first came out. What I haven't
Yeah,
done,
we've put a lot of work into trying to make sure the iPad version runs well.
what I haven't covered is any of your packs. And
Oh yeah,
maybe I'll reach out.
I'll
to
send
you.
them to you after this.
That
Yeah,
would be
yeah.
rad because I'll do one a week or something like that. And because
We did just put out a new one as well
I
on
saw that
the
last
Decent
night.
Sampler site. Memos we're very, very excited for.
with the 2 tapes, was that the one? I can't remember what it's called.
We did it all with micro cassette recorders.
Yeah,
So that was just an ungodly amount of work, but we're pretty happy with how it came together.
yeah. I watched the video on it last night. The sounds are beautiful. There's like 60 presets or something in it, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get 50 sound sources, so you can build your own presets within it. We had a whole new system that David designed for this release, actually, to where you can add knobs as a menu selector, so you can actually use the knobs to select the engine sounds
Yes.
and design your own presets and stuff. Which, yeah, that was a lot of work to code that.
So links in the description, folks. Gumroad, right? Here it is here. So
A lot of them are free too, and Decent
yeah.
Sampler itself is free.
Absolutely. And there's so many different creators who are making stuff. For it. David, makes amazing stuff. His YouTube channel is sick as well. I would love to have him on the show. He's so unique and interesting. Where am I? I'm here. Your music. So you've got all this YouTube going on. Now, you're still releasing music.
Mm-hmm.
And where do you find the time to do that as well? Because you have such a massive Bandcamp, such a massive library of music, and it's pretty indescribable, your music, which I love.
Thanks. Yeah. When I was doing a lot of tutorial videos and gear videos and stuff, like there would be music demos every so often, but it was really hard to make music while I was actively talking about gear and plugins, because there's always a new thing, right? There's always a new plug-in, always a new reverb, always a new synth or drum machine. So I just didn't make a ton of music. And as I got more into the type of content I do now, I write the original soundtracks for my videos. And I found that that's really helpful just to, maintain a musicality and like an overall aesthetic and vision, but separate it from the content in a way to where I feel like I have a much healthier relationship with content and music now, compared to when I was doing that type of stuff. So it's also, I'm always making something and working on something in the background. And if I make a soundtrack for a video and I think it works together well, I can put it together and, give it a proper mix and master and release it and stuff like that. So it's nice. Like, it's a good outlet on a lot of different creative levels now, rather than just more of a myopic, here's the new distortion thing.
I talk about this a lot on the channel, and some people take it. I think they're taking it the wrong way. Like, I talk about how I find that the danger in music is gone these days, and by that I'll try to
Sure.
that we wouldn't have artists like David Bowie and just all these unique, Jeff Buckley, all these artists that took risks and were dangerous with not only their appearance or their marketing or just the style of music or just pushed boundaries that you wouldn't expect from them. And these days, it just seems like everything that comes in is so homogenized. And I mean, it's been like that for a long time. Yeah. Do you think that there's a chance danger can come back into our music with the way the world's heading?
I think it's very much there. It's just much more on like an indie scene, which, maybe to use like video games as an example, right? Like major game titles, Call of Duty and, whatever and stuff like that. Like it's kind of a formula. It's kind of a template, like the next Elder Scrolls is probably going to feel a lot like the last fucking 5 Elder Scrolls games. But when you look at the indie scene, something like, I don't know, Super Meat Boy, which is like, it's basically a Flash game turned into a video game, or Blueprints, one I've been playing recently. It's like basically just a puzzle game. And I think there's a lot of inspiration and risk and stuff that's available in the indie side. And that's why I always think indie artists always tend to drive innovation, because not only for them is it a necessity in order to try and stand out, but it's also like the impetus to, I don't know, inspire other people to create is what remains in the indie scene a lot of times. Whereas like, I don't think a Sabrina Carpenter record is made to make you want to pick up a guitar, right? I think, and on some level, like that certainly is the case, like someone likes Sabrina Carpenter and wants to write music. Like, I think that does exist, but I think in the indie scene, there's such an innate sense of community and communication and openness that you don't find in popular music. So I think the risk remains there. It's just harder to find because we live in like an algorithmically flattened consumption habit a lot of the time. But I think, Bandcamp and SoundCloud and stuff like that, you can find all sorts of wild stuff out there. You just got to dig a bit, which, kind of going back 10, 20 years, same thing, right? Like if you wanted to find weird shit, you went to a record store and looked at the dusty bin in the back corner and found like something completely insane.
My advice, if you're one of those people who are stuck on YouTube and you're falling into conspiracy holes, go to Bandcamp and fall into that hole. Because trust me, I had given up on metal for so long. I don't know, it just felt like metal, it just again, 20-year cycles, just coming back around. And as soon as I got onto Bandcamp, every day there's something that pops out to me that I just go, what the fuck? This is so sick. It's so.
Are there any like recent metal bands you've had stand out to you?
Off the top of my head, no. My brain, it's too early for that. But it's good to see like a lot of old stuff that I used to listen to that's disappeared. Like I think I saw Clotted Symmetric Sexual Organ on there. And so good to know they're still going and making disturbing, fucked up music.
Right.
And it can be overwhelming too, like Bandcamp, because there's just so much stuff there, right? There's so much.
Yeah.
Much like anything. Speaking of music, let's play more. We're going to play Canadian Wildfires. Now, I'm sure I've said Canadian right this time.
Yeah. all the words are like they sound in this one, yeah.
All right, let's do it. We'll be back shortly, folks. So enjoy. Let's Oge. You know, last week I had on the show Andrew Fly, who runs Cinematic Alpha. He does packs for Contact and a Soundbox and all this stuff. And we're talking about his... it's not meant to be an offensive thing, but your music is the stuff I love to go to sleep to.
Yeah.
So
No, I feel you. I feel you.
It's hard to say that. I mean, when you make this kind of music, you get it, right? But for other people out there, they're probably like, "What are you saying?" Like it puts you to sleep. But
I've always thought of music, like I guess especially the type of music I make. I mean, obviously, I tend to lean more in like experimental side and all that. But I've always thought of it like art, like an art gallery piece.
yeah,
You know, where it's like you kind of get out of it what you put into it and what you're looking for in it. And I really, really like that.
is that
Like that,
something
again,
you've done?
kind of leaning back to that Colma thing. I've never done like physical art. I really want to someday though, like do a installation. One of my favorite artists, who I think also is originally from Australia, Ben Frost. He's done a couple installations that I thought were really, really, really cool. And I'd love to get into that scene someday, but I have zero idea how.
If there's anyone who could do it, I'm pretty sure you'd be able to achieve that as well. And something else on your plate. Well, let's talk about this because I had another person on here, Jamie Mallender. He's somebody he's here in the chat as well, and he's just ventured into creating music for video games. And he's got his music in a few games. And we talked about
Hell
that
yeah!
here.
All right.
And you know, it's an interesting subject, I think, to get into that because much with filming for creating scores for movies and television, this is somebody else's vision, and you've got to come in and then try and understand that. For you, how did you get into that, and what's the give and take back and forward with like I have this idea and they bounce back? Is it do you butt heads on this kind of stuff? I'm super interested to find out.
It kind of depends. These days, I don't tend to get involved with projects that have like a here's the type of music we want sort of thing attached. You know, I'm very fortunate in that like clients come to me, so it's more of a I wait for a game to come along that you know there's something I really like about it and an idea I can bring to the table because I think the best thing you can always do artistically in a collaborative space, you know, film, game, whatever, is to be a resource rather than like a drain to the project. So if you have like a unique vision or a different idea, it's really, really fun. And I actually got my start with games through apps, like mobile apps. And I had no idea that they used original music in those. I thought it was always just like stock music. I'm sure a lot of it is, but like, you know, mobile games have gotten pretty impressive. I don't play any of them myself, but like the first couple apps I did were, you know, puzzle apps and little things like that, where it was just kind of like writing, you know, generic video gamey sounding background music. But there were a couple that were like RPGs and stuff where it's like a whole 3D, you know, dungeon crawler thing and whatever. So that was really cool. And then eventually got into, you know, bigger projects and whatever. Avowed is like the biggest one I've done, which it still is so funny to me that I have like a 6 or 7 times platinum record from that, and I made it in an attic, you know. Like that kind of blows my mind a bit. But yeah, with things like that, I'm always attracted to a project to where they either have no expectation and just want to see my interpretation of what it would be, or where there is kind of a sense of friction where they're like, we want it to go this way, and I'm like, yes, but what if we don't? You know, I think there's a lot of fun to that again, and that collaborative environment I think just makes my brain tickle good. Where it's like, you know, what else could this be, what could this do, where could it go? And then especially in the medium of video games, you get a lot more freedom musically with how music can work and how it can be put together instead of being a linear, you know, you play a song, it plays back the same way every time. You can challenge a lot of your own assumptions about how music works and design very intricate, interactive systems of how things can be put together, and, you know, generative music and things like that. And I just think that stuff's fascinating.
We're looking at the Avowed game now. This is on PC, so I'm on Steam at the moment. Microsoft, Xbox. I mean, it gets me thinking, right? Is it the same thing as releasing an album? Like, because look, let me tell you, the album's sick. It's so interesting because I don't have the game, right? But I've listened to the soundtrack multiple times, and it's so interesting hearing.
It's a good soundtrack to fall asleep to.
It is, no, but the other thing too is when you listen to the songs, I'm imagining. Like, is this a scene out of like there's a courtyard and there's stores and people buying things? You get that out of it, you know. I'm so interested in making scores for film and all this kind of stuff. I'm looking into it seriously now. But is it the same feeling as releasing an album, having a game and playing it, having your music being blasted back to you?
Yes and no. I kind of like it a bit better because I like to see the way the developer interpret it, you know, because sometimes they'll take things and change them around and, you know, kind of put their own spin on like how the pieces come together. And I really love weird surprises like that. And then in other cases, you know, it's just fun to see a project come together where the game is kind of the album, where like, you know, you'll do an OST release typically, but the game is more the album than the album itself is, which is, I don't know, it's very, very cool. Like the game I'm working on right now, Don't Look at Grandma, that's been a really fun project because it's like weird indie horror stuff. And, you know, it's just a friend of mine making the game, and another friend of mine is the co-composer on it. We were just absolutely tickled to, you know, write weird music and play the game, and, you know, and then like, oh, there's the music, that's what we did, and now you can hear it, and then when you put the thing down, that's the sound we made when the thing goes down. And you know, it's very, very, very fun. I think it's a much more, I don't know, like satisfying feeling because you're working with other people and you get to see not only how your music changes the feel of the game, you know, because like when you first play it, it has no music or maybe has like stock music, and then you hear your music and that's really exciting. But then to see your music in it and the way that it makes the scene feel is just so cool to me. And it's always really fun when you get to watch people do like a playthrough of the game and like how they react to things and whatever.
And too, like, no game is played the same way, so people are getting a different set list each time they play, you know, so that's never-ending boundaries. I mean, you know, once you release an album, those songs are set in stone unless you've got shuffle.
Right, yeah.
And then, yeah. So there's a question. Has Cameron used any iOS apps in productions?
I have not. I don't have an iPad or iPhone. I've thought about buying an iPad a few times because like there's a, what is it, AUM?
AUM
and that
rocks.
Seems really, really fun. And then there's a couple iOS exclusive like sequencers, and there's like a granular thing. I think that was Heinbach and Audio Thing did some kind of like granular iOS app that seems really fun. But yeah, I don't have any of that myself. It's just I'm very much like an Android PC setup, so like integrating an iPad into Windows is like pulling teeth. So I haven't done it yet, but maybe at some point, like if I find a cheap one at like a pawn shop or something, I might just grab it just to, you know, see what I can do with it.
No judgment here. Use the tools that make you fucking happy. And if people tell you anything different, go tell them to fuck themselves. That's my opinion on that stuff. Because there's too many stupid opinions out there.
Like if people tell you you're doing music wrong, those are people who have like never accomplished anything worth talking about in their life. So like you can just disregard that right into the trash. Another
really amazing piece of music that you have, and we're going to play a track from it very soon, is this album here. Do you want to tell us? So Avowed is available now, and you're working on another game too, aren't you, at the moment?
A couple games. Two of them I can't talk about yet, but the next one is Don't Look at Grandma, yeah.
Right. But this oops, hit the right button, Jade. This album here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Thanks. This was like full on pulling my hair out, like losing my mind trying to get this to, I don't know, be what I wanted it to be.
Warhammer. So, look, it's a beautiful album. It's a beautiful piece of music.
Thanks.
It really is. And when I listen to this kind of stuff, I'm just sitting here thinking, how the fuck do you come up with all these pieces that just come together to create this feeling?
I wish I could tell you. The best I've ever heard it described is, I think his name's Chris Robinson, the Black Crowes lead singer. There's an old VH1 music special, and he talks about this idea of like, as artists and musicians, there's this like universal song, and we just like now and again we pull out our little piece of it. And I think in like the productivity space and psychology space, we refer to that as like flow state, and I guess that's it. It's just every once in a while you just hit this pocket of brain space where like you're not thinking, you're just kind of like an impetus for an idea to happen. And I don't know, that's always the way I try and approach music, is like as soon as I start thinking about anything, the game's over, like as soon as I can just kind of completely zone out and just listen to ideas and pull things together, I think that's where it really shines. And this project was pretty much that, and just trying to find those little ideas where I'm like, this is what it has to be.
It's just wonderful. I'm a big fan, as you can tell. Let's move to your move. I mean, you made a dramatic shift from covering all these hardware and stuff, this beautiful hardware and software, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it was always there. This is the thing. Like I've heard other people say, "Oh, you changed the direction of your channel," but to me, like you were always this, but now just more beautifully shot. Right.
And hairier now.
Man, it's so people get hung up on and shit. Anyway, the last thing I want to mention here before we go on with this, Chem who's one of like iOS, he's a fantastic iOS app developer. He dropped a code in the chat before for somebody to cash in for one of his apps. On your Chem, that was really nice of you. I love that kind of stuff. So whoever got that, on you. Let's talk about the change in direction, if you want to call it that, to this SA style. I love this more than anything, right? Your videos drop and bang, I'm on it. And if you go through my rants, you will see there's probably been about 7 of your videos that have inspired my rants. And even this week's one I'm doing, which is called Who Cares? And it is about like music, and it's like I'm focusing on community. We have this community here, which is like I said to you before the show, it's like a smattering of different channels that plays each other's music, and the whole thing is just about building each other up. And it feels like sometimes the music industry is so distant from my fucking imagination because we have built our own music industry. So tell us about the journey into cameras and lighting and this stuff is so delicious. Let's go.
Yeah, I mean it's a ton of work. I mean I got a pretty good camera at one point when I first moved here. Ironically enough, I had to buy a better camera because I was doing a video for Steinberg at the time about like building a home studio and stuff, and I needed a good full frame mirrorless camera, and I was like, all right, let's do it. So I bought a Sony A7 III and a couple nice lenses, and I've always been into like photography and stuff and videography, and I did some video production work ages ago. So I kind of just started thinking about applying that to my own thing of like, how do I bring more of this in? And like, if you watch some of my older tutorials, there are clips of like B-roll and like some other things. Like I've always, as you said, kind of always been doing a little bit of that now and again. And now it was like, like what is a Venus Theory video? And, I often get a lot of things of like, it looks like a Netflix show. And that's like, I think the best compliment I can get. And, now I use like a proper cinema camera, and I have loads of lights and tools and lens filters, and there's not a frame of one of my videos these days that's not there for like a very specific reason. So it's a ton of work, but for me it all kind of came from, I call it the Venn diagram of bullshit, to where like these are the things I'm into, like music, philosophy, psychology, art, cinematography, books, self-development, music theory, all these other things. And like in some of them I'm better than others, but I'm not like extraordinary at any one of these things in any particular sense. But when you put all those together and then you overlay them like right in the middle of that dot there, like that's where I exist. And kind of going back to what I said earlier, it's like no matter what it is I'm doing, I'm the only one that can make that video. And I think the best compliment I've ever gotten was from John Makes Beats, if you're familiar with his channel.
Yes.
He's a great guy, and he texted me one day and he was like, man, the thing about your videos is no one else could make that without looking like a complete asshole. So I think that was nice, where it was like there's so much heart and personality and like so much of myself in them now that I think that's kind of what makes them work. And again, there's a lot of risk in that, like putting such a vulnerable part of yourself into creative work. You know, like you said, it's just we tend to wound ourselves very, very easily. But I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it's come together into something that, at least to me, feels pretty unique still. Like I don't see other channels kind of doing what I'm doing, which I think is a good sign, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why I click on it as soon as it comes up. You and Ben Jordan are both two.
Sure. Yeah.
And Ben's done some fucking amazing stuff with talking about sound, and the one he did on the spy cameras and shit, all the cameras was just like, what the fuck, man? He's just going for it. And you two went out and shot a huge thing together. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. You did.
The cave diving video,
Yeah.
right? That one? Or yeah, we've done a couple together. Yeah, no. Yeah, the cave diving one was crazy. That was definitely like it was funny because we were both like, these videos are going to do so well. We're going to get like 100,000 views, and both of the videos just performed fucking terribly. But goddamn, I'm glad we did that. That was such a fun project and such a weird thing. And that was one of those like life moment experiences of like, why can't everything be like this?
Yeah.
You know, like, why can't it all be like storytelling and very pretty and interesting? And like, why can't I put this level of effort into everything, which is now why my videos take ages to drop. But I'm glad that it's turned out the way it did, because I think among my community, like, when one of my videos drops, it's kind of like a little event, you know?
It absolutely is. This is the one. I think this is the hunt for the reverb in the caves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, beautiful. And just, yeah, I love this kind of stuff. I mean, as I said in the beginning of the show, it's inspired me to get out and shoot my little show called Walk With Me. And I just walk around with two cameras and I love it. And people look at me like a dickhead. I don't give a shit. It's the whole editing
I've watched
process.
a few of those. Yeah, they're where like people walk around Shanghai with like an FPV camera and stuff. It's super, super fun.
It is good fun. But they perform shit. Absolutely shit.
I'm sure. Yeah, I feel like that's one of those spaces where it's like it either goes incredibly viral or like gets no views at all.
Yeah, but you know that I think that's the thing. It's one of the things I've learned from watching your channel but it doesn't matter. Like, well, it does matter. Obviously, if you want to live and eat food, like we've discussed, of course that stuff matters. But do you enjoy doing it? You know, there's no point doing shit that you hate. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I think that's kind of why my videos are what they are now, because like if it wasn't that, I wouldn't be interested, and I would be, I don't know, running a landscaping business or something.
Let's play another song because we're running out of time, and I do want to do some current, future kind of where we're heading musically and all this kind of stuff. This is from the Horus Rising Act 3. And which one do we have here? It is Veiled Diplomacy. I think I've got it right. Yes. Let's play this track right now. You ready? Let's go. Oh, yeah. I can't even do the cheesy applause after that. It ruined the moment. Wow, powerful, emotive, dark, passion, so much to that. Man, you just really have a skill set that
Thanks.
is incredible.
I like to think I dabble in music now and again.
Occasionally. It's just beautiful. And I'm so excited. The song I picked for last kind of circles back around, talking about guitar, picking up guitar in the beginning. And you wait to hear this last song, folks. It is just, it made me fucking cry.
Thanks.
And I love that. If I hear music that makes me feel shit, it's out. Goodbye. I got to feel something from it. Let's talk about a little bit more about the music industry and everyone's favorite subject at the moment, AI.
Yeah, let's get into it. Let's do that.
You know what my problem is with it more than anything else, right? Apart from the imposters who just generating shit, right? I can see benefits from these. Suno and this are doing like these doors now where you can put your own stuff in and generate stuff and collab, move it back into. I can see some kind of collab situation with that. Obviously, with every kind of thing out there in the world, there are bad actors that are going to just put a prompt in and put it up on Spotify and ruin it for everybody else. The thing that troubles me the most, apart from them stealing everybody's fucking music, which, is bullshit. Nobody got asked about it. And there's been nothing done about it. The other thing is the power consumption and the amount of water it takes to create this fucking crap. And the electricity bills that are going up for people across the world because of this fucking shit in a time when we need to be like looking at energy and stuff.
Sure.
What's your take on AI?
Yeah, like on the level of like the DAW thing you mentioned, looking back to myself, 20 some years ago, when I was first starting out, all I had was like a guitar and I had to learn how to record the guitar into the computer. And then that was really hard. And then like I wanted to make a song, but I needed like drums and bass to make like a rock song. And I don't have a drum kit. I don't have a bass guitar. I had to like go find a bass or borrow one and then learn how to record that on top of the guitar at the same time. And then drums, like can't buy a drum kit. Had to figure out like MIDI. What the fuck is that? How do I get MIDI? Because I was using Audacity primarily, which didn't have, MIDI stuff. And I was like, okay. So I was like, pirating FL, that I couldn't figure that out. I ended up buying Mixcraft at a Guitar Center, and that had like a basic drum, like MIDI, beat maker thingy, and it had some loops it came with. So that was kind of cool. And
Mixcraft was cool. I like
I mean, it still is. Like
yeah.
Mixcraft is still pretty fucking powerful, and it's like $50. I mean, can't beat that really, other than Reaper. Like, I use Reaper, and Reaper, the personal license is like $60, and Reaper is fucking phenomenal. But yeah, Mixcraft still is like, I think, kind of slept on with the amount of stuff it can do for like little to no money. Like, you don't need a $1,000 Pro Tools setup anymore, right? And with AI, like I could see that acting as a tool when I was younger to be like, hey, I wrote this guitar part, can you add drums to it? And I think on some level, anyone who does that, like the aspiration is still to make a band one day, right? Like I still want to get a real drummer and play a real show with real people to a real crowd. But yeah, as you mentioned, on the other end, it is just kind of like a, cheat code sort of thing of like, make a song that sounds like Bad Bunny or Skrillex or whatever, and it can just kind of spit that out, and then you could like throw some lyrics on top and call it a day. And like I'm not entirely convinced that that's the same thing as like truly writing a song. And, maybe my opinion on that will change someday, but I don't think it will. I think it's kind of the equivalent of like slapping stock footage together and calling it a YouTube video essay.
Yeah.
I don't think it's really the same thing, but, I think it comes down to the public consumption and reception of it, if the broad public doesn't really care, then like it doesn't really matter ultimately. But I think as artists, we all know where we draw our lines with it. Like using AI to help me write code or something. I don't think that's like cheating or anything. It's just like sometimes I need to write 1,000 lines of code that are really redundant, so I can just have GitHub Copilot or something like help me finish out 1,000 lines of redundant code. But I'm still gonna like build the thing and do the thing and all that. And you know, with music, I have this weird kink where I really enjoy writing and making music, so I'm just going to keep doing that. You know,
True.
and I think a lot of artists kind of have the same thing with it, where it's like, you know, would I use AI to, I don't know, generate 1,000 pictures of a scene that would inspire me to make something? Sure, I don't think that's a problem, but I think if I was just crapping out a bunch of Suno prompts and calling it music, I don't think that's art. I think that's just, you know, it's a more like postmodern equivalent of downloading a splice sample pack and putting 5 loops together. And, you know, I think there's kind of a line between like someone who's putting part of themselves into something and a line of the people who are just like creating a consumable product.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe is the best way to put it.
Recently in one of my shows, so I went into AUM and created some piano and some guitar parts using Soundbox and some drums and bass line with a verse, a pre-chorus, and a chorus. And I put that into Suno and said, take this idea and turn it into something. And then took that idea, split it all up, brought it back into Logic, and then replayed all the parts that it gave me in my own thing. But it gave me like a song structure. But everything else that it gave me got binned. It's all you can't use that shit anyway because it's all artifacts and it's all shit. It sounds like
right. Yeah, sure.
Because at the same instance, in my opinion, like, you know, how we have, if somebody's making music in GarageBand and you've used GarageBand enough and somebody releases a song using the auto drummer Anders, you hear it straight away and go, that's Anders. And the same thing, I think, with AI music, with Suno. You hear it straight away and go, but I could see how putting it in for an idea and expanding on something that you already have makes sense. But at the same time, I still feel dirty.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, though, you know, where is the clear line with that? Because if we're going to, you know, claw at that thread, it's also to the extent of like, well, I use probability systems. I use generative music systems a lot. I use Hook Theory website. There's like a auto suggest the next chord. Like if I'm working on something and I need a new chord and I can't like think of something for some reason, it'll, you know, automatically fill out a chord that might make sense. And it's like, is that the equivalent of using AI or loops or something? Like, I don't know. But I think kind of to your point, if it does inspire you and you end up then personally going in and remaking it or like adding your own contributions on top, you know, I don't think I really take too much of an issue with something like that, because it's like there still is human creativity driving the thing, you know, and like the fulfillment of the artist completing the idea. But yeah, when you know, like it's stupid, but if you remove the artist from art, like then what is it? It's just a thing.
yeah. It's I mean, we're even at the point too where we've created slurs for AI, like clankers.
Yeah, clanker.
Like, that's such a human thing to do, isn't it? Like,
right. Yeah.
Let's just be racist against them. Yay, good times.
Yeah, that'll solve it.
Yeah, exactly. Their feelings won't get hurt at all. Like,
yeah, I sometimes I think about that with like, you know, some of the AI like coding tools I use or things like that. It's really funny to where it reminds me a lot of that Rick and Morty episode where Rick makes the robot and its only purpose is to bring him butter. And, you know, like sometimes I open up whatever and it's like, hello, how can I help you today? And I'm like, shut the fuck up and turn this and you know, go through this XML and remove redundant lines. Like that's your existence. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, ChatGPT, I had to go in and because you can go in and tell it things in the settings and go, don't patronize me. Don't tell me I'm good. Treat me like a bitch. Treat me like you're a dominatrix.
Yeah,
I want to be told I'm shit, you know. Treat me like the real world does, please. But
yeah, and I'm like, you know, your only purpose is to go through this and revise the, you know, structure of the code to make sure there's maximum efficiency in the DSP. Stop telling me I'm good, you know.
What a great idea. It's like, I just told you I want to kill people. What's going on?
Right, yeah.
All right, so we are at the end of the show. What's the roadmap for Venus Theory coming up in? I don't want to go too far ahead because who plans that far ahead? But
yeah.
What's going on for you?
Let's see. Memos from Decent Sampler is soft launched. The official launch is later this month. That's new. Don't Look at Grandma, new indie game coming out on Steam late October. There's a trailer up for that now. It's up on Steam. That'll be super duper fun. Next up, I have a free instrument library I'm making from the Novation Summit here. And then I've got, what else? New video I'm working on. It's a documentary about indie games. So that should be out in the coming weeks, hopefully. My time and sanity notwithstanding. And then beyond that, a couple other projects, but I can't talk about them yet.
Of course. And there is memos. I watched a beautiful video on this yesterday. And fuck, man, it sounds really... Look at that interface.
It was a lot of work. Yeah, that interface took me, I mean,
it's very
I don't know, probably about 2 weeks of just back and forth of like, pixel by pixel and whatever. And then some of the new functions we added in there, like the speaker selection switch, and then the battery icon up in the upper right, like is animated. And,
nice.
it was a ton of work. Like David added quite a few new features so we could build this library, and we're really, really excited with how it came out.
It's very sexy. I want to fuck it. So the last question I ask everybody here on the show, it's a trick question. It's really hard, this one.
Bring it on.
If somebody was considering becoming creative in whatever aspect, when, Venus Theory, would you suggest the best time is for them to start?
I mean, best time to plant a tree is always yesterday, right? I think the best thing you can do for yourself as an artist is stop giving a shit about anything ever. Like the most nihilistic form of creativity, I think, is the most freeing, to where if you want to start doing something, don't let anything get in your way of doing it. I mean, that's pretty much been the story of my entire life, and I think it's worked out okay so far.
Absolutely. So not a real shock there.
Yeah, get the air horn in.
I've just got to play that effect once every show because it's so cool. We're going to go out today, and I do ask, please stay on the line so I can say goodbye to you off air. We're going to close this with this beautiful song. Do you want to tell us about this? This is Where Those Whispered Dreams May Sleep.
Yeah, I was filming a video about, I think that was the one about where I got fired from a game I was working on, and just talking about some, thoughts I wanted to share with the class and so on. But I went up into Kentucky and northern Tennessee to an area where I know there's a lot of abandoned stuff near some places I typically film at, which is why I get those like crazy liminal, wide shots and stuff. So there's a couple places I like to go to film those. And I found this area that had a couple abandoned restaurants. And the title of the song kind of came from that, of imagine someone, or maybe a couple, I couldn't find any history on this restaurant, who probably put just so much money and time and effort into making this like local restaurant, and now it's completely dead and empty and just like overgrown and very weird. And I thought that was a really interesting idea of like, this is a place where the best and worst days of someone's life happened. I think, what's that quote about, like, hospital walls have heard more prayers than churches. Right. And it was a very similar feeling there. So that was kind of where the title and the vibe of the song came from. And it's a very, very cool song. I like it a lot, and I hope you do too.
It's absolutely stunning. Folks, thank you for being here in the chat and doing what you do. You're just amazing. Thank you to those, if you're watching on the replay as well, do all the things, the YouTube things that they make you do. It helps the channel and all that stuff. Thank you to DistroKid for sponsoring the show. And of course, thank you to Cameron Venus Theory for coming on. You have made my 2025 complete.
Well, thanks for having me on. This was great. It reminds me a lot of Hot Ones. I don't know if you've been told that before. Your questions are very, very good.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. That makes me super happy. I think I said to you at the start of the show, I watch so many interviews, and I get more frustrated at the interviewers than the guest on. I'm just like, let them fucking talk. I don't need to know about your course, please.
For sure.
There's enough fucking courses out there. This is Where Those Whispered Dreams May Sleep. All the links are in the description. Go and buy some music on Bandcamp, because you should. We've gone through all the packs, all that stuff for Decent Sampler and these other packs. So go and spend some money. Make some good music. That's the most important thing. Let's do this. Do the things that make you happy, folks. Mistakes make you better, and we'll all rise together. This is Where Those
Cheers,
Whispered
everybody.
Dreams May Sleep. Oh, ja.